Morning, guys. Welcome to the current affairs session where we will be discussing all of the important topics that are necessary for UPSC, be it prelims or be it mains. We'll be discussing everything, right? So let us start with this particular current affairs session. Firstly, we have this particular editorial that is talking about how terrorism, like terrorism's data retreat, terrorism's data retreat hides emerging global threats. Right, this particular editorial has been written by Shashi Tharoor and in this particular editorial, he says that globally the amount of terrorism or the amount of terrorist incidents have been reducing. Basically, the amount of terrorist deaths have decreased. Right, the amount of terrorist deaths have decreased from 5,000, nearly 5,800, right, 5,582, 5,582 to reduce to 5,582, and similarly, terrorist incidents also have reduced. Right, terrorist incidents have reduced nearly to 2,800, right, and the amount of what do you call terrorist deaths and what do you call deaths declined due to terrorism also declined to nearly 28%. These are the things that this particular editorial is trying to say. It's saying that the data that is showing that the amount of terrorism that is there overall around the globe has been gradually reducing. Right, the amount of terrorism that is there, or the terrorist events, or the deaths caused by terrorism have gradually reduced. Right, and the author is saying just because the particular death data that is there due to terrorism or the terrorist incidents that are there has declined doesn't mean that terrorism has been eroded. The author says that the particular terrorist incidents that are there have been concentrated. Previously, it was based on large organizations, right? Large organizations, great planning, right? They used to take incidents, and multiple members used to come together, and based on that, they used to plan a particular terrorist incident. But unlike that, this time it's not like this. The author is saying that this time it is not like what you call large organizations or huge planning. Here it is small or individual people. Meaning that a particular individual feels like that this particular organization or this particular ideology is what I'm going to pick, and he does some terrorist activities, right? That is there, small individuals, and there is small cells or small planning rather than huge planning, right? Rather than huge planning like 26 by 11, all of these incidents, what they're doing is they're trying to plan small, which would not look like a terrorist accident. Right? So these are the things that the author is saying. Author is saying that it has evolved from a big, large organization and huge planning to small things. It has started to adapt itself because everyone is talking about terrorism. So everyone is very vigilant, right? Very vigilant. Every country is very vigilant. Every what you call institution is very vigilant about terrorist organizations. So as they are very vigilant, they started to adapt. How will they be recognized? They'll be recognized if there are large organizations. They'll be recognized if there is large planning. If there is recognition if they are repeated members. So what they're doing is they're removing all of these. They're removing the large organizations. They're removing long planning so that people will not be able to grasp. The organizations or the institutions will not be able to grasp. They would think that all the terrorist accidents or terrorist incidents are reducing. That is an illusion that they are creating. Only after this illusion is created, then they do small and isolated incidents. Right? That is what this is saying, and it says that nearly 70%, right? Nearly 70% of the terrorist activities are concentrated. They are concentrated in some countries. Some countries like Pakistan, then Niger, then you have Burkina Faso, then you have Democratic Republic of Congo. Right? The author is saying that all the terrorist incidents or the terrorist activities that are there, they are concentrated. Nearly 70% of them are concentrated in small countries like Pakistan, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Democratic Republic of Congo. So many stable and big countries are thinking that it is not our problem and it is happening somewhere else. But these kind of isolated incidents and small incidents together make up a big incident, and they start to percolate. So we have to be very vigilant when it comes to these things also. We have to realize that even the terrorist organizations are adapting themselves. What are the terrorist organizations? There is ISIS, then there is TTP, right? Then there's Al Shabaab. There are many organizations that are there. They are trying to adapt. They are not vanishing. First thing that you have to keep in mind is that the ideology that is there, that is not going to die anytime soon. Until unless there is a particular or certain goal that is there, right? Only when that goal is attained, then that ideology will reduce. Until unless the goal is not attained, the ideology will not reduce at all. So terrorism as an ideology will keep on going as long as the goal is not yet achieved. So we have to be in this ideology. We have to be in this particular thought that the particular goal has not been achieved. Then why would the terrorist organization start to reduce? Right? We have to keep thinking about this. So we have to know that all the terrorist organizations are adapting to the events that are going on globally, be it the G7 or be it the countries that they are taking individual initiatives. These countries might be adapting, and the countries might be thinking all these, but all the terrorist organizations are adapting to these things, right? So that is what they are saying, and it also talks about how and why the particular terrorism as an ideology is increasing. Terrorism as an ideology increases, one, because they have a particular goal, right? And second thing is when a particular country's police, judicial system, or governance fails. When all of these fail, terrorism as an organization takes place. Right? Terrorism takes place in the place of these institutions. It fills the vacuum. Right? That is why terrorism is growing. Right? The first thing is that there is police, there is judicial system, there is governance. Whenever all of these fail, the terrorism as an ideology or terrorism as an organization will fill the vacuum. Right? It will fill the vacuum. The second thing is the borders. Borders are not protected. Nearly 60% of the incidents that take place, nearly 60% of the terrorist incidents that take place within the 100 meters, 100 kilometers of the international borders. What does it say? It says that the international borders of that particular country are not protected well. When the international borders of the country are not protected well, they are obviously taking a chance. They're saying that at least there is no chance for us to do some terrorist incident or terrorist activity within the country. Maybe we'll do it in the border, which is actually very important. Borders are actually very important for international security. So all the terrorist activities, nearly 60% of them are happening within the 100 kilometers of the international borders. And this happens mainly because the weak border management. So that is another thing why there is high amount of propagation in terrorist activities. So what does the government have to do? The government has to ensure that there is high amount of policing. Right? Police is strong police, better judicial management, better governance, better laws for terrorist activities. Understand the nature of terrorism. Rather than looking at incidents and looking at the ideology of the incidents, we should understand the nature of terrorism. That only when we are aware of the nature of something, then we'll be able to grasp on how and what its next move could be. Right? We were thinking that terrorism as an ideology is only based on incidents or activities that are happening. Right? Only when it is a large organization, only when there is planning, then it is called terrorism, is what we thought. But it's not like that. Terrorism is not only large organizations or large planning. It can be small organizations and it can be individual planning. Right? So that is what this particular editor is saying. We have to understand the adaptability of terrorism. So we have to do better policing, judicial management, governance, laws for that, understanding the nature of that, and also border management. Right? Only when we do the border management, then the amount of terrorist activities that are there near the borders can be reduced. So that is all that is there in this particular editorial. You can use this particular editorial in GS3 when it comes to internal security, how terrorism as an activity, right, is being adapted. You'll not use it like this particular information, but you'll use the ideology of this particular editorial. The editorial is saying that terrorism has changed its manner. It is not large organizations, it is not long planning, it is small and individual planning. So it is adapting. So you can take this particular ideology of terrorism as an adaptive strategy and then use it in your mains answer writing plan, right? So that is there. And then you have this particular editorial, which was written by UN Secretary General, right? It's talking about a future of financial health for every Indian, right? It's talking about a future of financial health for every Indian. Now, in this particular editorial, the major differentiation that you need to understand is that, firstly, there is difference between financial inclusion and financial health. There's a difference between financial inclusion and financial health. Now, what is financial inclusion? Financial inclusion is nothing but where you are helping a particular person being included in the financial system. How do you include that particular person in financial system? You include them by using banks. You give them bank accounts, you give them more access to banks. Then that person will be included in the financial system. That is nothing but financial inclusion. We have high amount of financial inclusion. Previously, we had only 56% of adult donors. Only 56% of adult owners. Now, with the help of schemes like Jan Dhan Yojana and direct benefit transfer, we have gone to 89%. Right? The number of people that are actually using bank accounts is 89%. That is actually very high. So there is high amount of financial inclusion in that. So what are the things? PM Jan Dhan Yojana, then direct benefit transfer, then UPI, right? These are the things which have actually helped people get more access to bank systems. Now, the editorial is saying that just because you have financial inclusion doesn't mean that there is high amount of financial health. Now, what is financial health? Generally, health means being able to do things, right? If I'm healthy, I'll be able to walk. If I'm healthy, I'll be able to think, right? If I'm healthy, I'll be able to do some work. These are things that tell that a person is healthy. Similarly, financial health means that a particular person is able to spend all of the expenses or manage all of the expenses. That person can retire with dignity. That person can ensure that there is high amount of planning, there is high amount of savings, there is good investment. This is nothing but financial health. We have high amount of financial inclusion, but very low amount of financial health. The reason we have very low amount of financial health is because we are not focusing on that. We are only focusing on including people. We are ensuring that every person has a bank account, but we are not ensuring whether that person is investing, whether that person is saving, where that person is spending, right? For this day, this particular editorial has given an example, right? An example on what do you call a person, right? A person and how that person, right? For example, say there's a person called an AR, right? And that person is a caddy for nearly 45 years, right? That person has been a caddy for 45 years, and in that 45 years, that person has spent all of the income that he has been generating for the betterment of the family, right? So that particular person has no savings. The particular person has no investment. For 45 years, no investment, no savings. After that, after 45 years, that person came across the national pension system, right? National pension scheme is what that person came across. After coming across the national pension scheme, he started investing in it. Once you start investing it, what happens? That particular person now has backing. There is financial security. Even when his job goes or even when he retires, he still has money to fall back on. That is nothing but financial health. Financial health is being able to be in a position where you are managing all the expenses, understanding what is going around you, investing properly, saving properly so that you can live a dignified life. That is nothing but financial health. So this editorial is talking about a future of financial health for every Indian. Now, how can we maintain financial health is what this particular editorial is talking about. The first thing that we need to do is integrating, right? Integration of PM Jan Dhan Yojana to many things. Right? PM Jan Dhan Yojana has been a very successful initiative when PM Jan Dhan Yojana is such a successful initiative and many members are actually there of or part of PM Jan Dhan Yojana, what do you have to do? You have to link all the other particular schemes to PM Jan Dhan Yojana. For example, let's say PM Jan Dhan Yojana is used by nearly 100 crore people. Right? PM Jan Dhan Yojana is linked to 100 crore people, meaning that 100 crore people have access to bank accounts. Now, what do you have to do? You have to ensure that the e-Shram portal, the National Pension Scheme, right? The what you call PM Kisan, right? PM Kisan is there. Then we have Manrega, right? PMJJBY. All of these initiatives which are actually helpful for maintaining a financial health should be connected to PM Jan Dhan Yojana, meaning that all of these will be exposed to how many people? Will be exposed to 100 crore people. So that way, not only PM Jan Dhan Yojana will be successful, but also other schemes that are there, which are actually helpful for our country, will also be exposed to all of these people and they'll start using it. Okay, that is what this editorial is saying. First, we need to ensure that we need to integrate PM Jan Dhan Yojana to all of these. Only when we integrate all of these, then people will be using more. Right? If let's say if there is something that is useful, let's say there is a pen, and this pen is there. I'm keeping this pen in the cupboard. Will people use it? No. If I use it, if I keep this pen in front of them every day, what will they do? They'll obviously take this pen and use this pen. That is what you need to create. You need to create a mechanism in which they can see things, they can know things. Many people in our particular country might not know about particular scheme, might not know how to order, how to manage a particular scheme. So what we have to do, we have to make it very easy for all of these people so that they can get access to these particular schemes. And how do you do that? You do it by adding to a successful scheme. Right? So that is what this particular editor is saying. And other than that, the editor is saying that we need to increase or strengthen our public digital infrastructure. What is public digital infrastructure? It's nothing but DigiLocker, right? DigiLocker or UPI, right? Online Aadhaar. These are the things that are actually what public digital infrastructure, which is actually very good. Right? It's actually very good, and India has what you call made wonders with all of these, because UPI is something that many countries are actually using now. And you have Aadhaar card and you have DigiLocker. These are the things which are actually very visionary in nature. And countries are actually using these and taking ideologies from our digital public infrastructure and ensuring that they are included in theirs. So our digital public infrastructure is good, right? Now we have to ensure that it is more strengthened. It is strong. It is not susceptible to all the changes that are happening globally. Just because there is some change in what you call stock market or some change in the NFT or the what you call bitcoins, all of these things which are there actually, these things should not change or affect our digital public infrastructure. That is the thing that this particular editor is saying. And the last thing I guess this thing is talking about is public private partnership, right? It's saying that countries like Netherlands and Indonesia are actually being partners with countries, being partners with all the private investors so that they can increase the public financial health, right? It is not only the government's job, right? Government cannot alone do everything. Government alone cannot do everything. So what it has to do, it has to take the help of private partnership. Private partnership. Only when it takes the help of private partnership, it will be able to implement things effectively. Right? It is not doing things. It is doing things effectively that we need. Right? So in order to do things effectively, we need to ensure that it is not only government's help we are taking, but also we are taking the help of the private partnership. Right? So that is another thing that this particular editor is saying. So that we need to ensure there is high amount of financial health in India. Now, what happens when there is financial health? When there is financial health, obviously, people will save more. Right? People will save more, and when people save more, they might invest more. They might take a calculated risk. They might educate their children. When they educate their children, they can set up businesses. When they set up businesses, what happens? Economy grows. And how does this help? This helps us maintain or attain Viksit Bharat. Viksit Bharat by 2047. right? We can attain Viksit Bharat by 2047. So this is what we are talking about in this particular editorial. Financial health is actually very important. You can actually write a mains question on this, right? I'll try to think of a mains question in the meanwhile. Okay, maybe let's say financial health is essential for a country like India, especially with a goal of Viksit Bharat by 2047. Explain. Right. This is a particular mains question that I actually thought of right now. Right. You can write an answer. Right. This can be a 10 marker. Right. You can write about how there is financial health. The financial health is very necessary for countries like India, and then you will be writing about what financial health is and what are the indicators of financial health and how financial health is important for India. And then you'll be writing why it is important for India with a goal of Viksit Bharat by 2047, and how financial health, what financial health would help ensure that we'll be able to attain Viksit Bharat by 2047. So that is what you'd be writing in this particular answer. So try to write an answer on this particular question, right? So that you can gain more understanding on how mains answer are actually asked. Okay, then you have this particular editorial which says that women must find, right? Women must find support to stay in jobs to that match their degrees. Okay, in this editorial, it's talking about how women are highly into the higher education, right? There's more amount of women in higher education, but despite being more in number in higher education, the amount of jobs that are there that they're getting are very low. It says that the amount of enrollment, right, absolute female enrollment is nearly 42%, right? While there is high amount of enrollment in what you call uh, of female in higher education, that does not mean that this particular enrollment is turning into jobs, right? This does not mean that the particular enrollment is turning into jobs. So what is happening? The thing that is happening is that nearly 42% are there, right? And the male enrollment is nearly 22%. Only 22.16% of the male enrollment is there. While the 22%, 22.16 male enrollment is there, it is ensuring that the amount of women that are represented in the STEM, right, or the science, technology, all of this is very low. Right, 44% of them are part of STEM, right, and despite being 44% in STEM, only 50 something 52% people of the 44% are in sciences, meaning that biology or pharmacy or zoology, these kind of things that they're there in. But the rest of the 31% or 32%, they are there in engineering, which are actually meant for high paying jobs. So what does it say? It says that the amount of higher involvement that is there in higher education, despite this high amount of enrollment in higher education, they are not in highly lucrative degrees, right? They are not in highly lucrative degrees which actually ensure that there is high payment. So that is another problem or the issue that is there, right? And when there is these kind of issues, what they're doing is the amount of conversion from degree to job is also very low. Job is very low. For men, it is nearly 25%, but for women, it is nearly 18%. Right? They say that the amount of conversion from jobs, I mean, degree to jobs is very low for women. It is nearly 18% for women. So what does it say? It says that many women, despite having better degrees, they are not getting more jobs. And the reason they are not getting more jobs is because it's not because of their capability. It's not because of the skill mismatch. It can be other reasons. First thing is social norms. Social norms is one reason. Second reason is mobility and safety. Mobility and safety factor is also actually very important, right? Mobility and safety factor is also an important factor why they are not actually changing into jobs. And the third aspect is the amount of what you call marriage or childcare. And they get married and their responsibilities start to increase, and there's childcare. When there's childcare, they'll stop their jobs, they'll not go to the jobs, and there is high amount of gap. When there is huge amount of gap, they'll not be able to go to the job again. So, like this, social norms, mobility, safety issues, marriage and children, and these are the things which are actually very troubling for women. And there is high amount of career what you call interruptions like marriage and childbearing, and obviously there is low what you call participation in high paying sectors. As I told you, their main jobs are basically mainly based on biology or zoology. These are the things that are actually there. Nearly 52% of the women which are in higher education are in these kind of fields. And these kind of fields are not lucrative or high paying in nature. So these are the things that are actually hindering women's capabilities in ensuring that they get the job. So you can use this particular information, but you can only use the stats. Right? You can use these stats. I would request you guys to collect all the stats and then use it in mains in society. Right? That is nothing but gender studies paper 1. Right? You can use it in all of these. So yeah, that's all for today's class. Hope you guys have learned a lot. See you guys on Monday. Thank you.